Welcome, everybody. Welcome, welcome, welcome. Fedora Friday number three. Fedora Friday number three. Wow, these are starting to stack up, right? We just got a Hat Tuesday number three Wednesday edition. Just felt like it was yesterday, but it was actually the day before yesterday. But yeah, I don't know. I feel like I have like a little bit of an allergy situation going on. I don't know if it's I'm trying to come down with something. This has basically been since Tuesday when I returned back from the conference. I started feeling it that evening, and I felt a little bit worse for wear on the next day when I went and did the Hat Tuesday chat, stream. But whatever it is, I've been trying to pump the allergy medications and see if that, But if I sound a little bit nasally, that's what's going on. But yeah, I'm like really excited about today's show. Just to kind of get you guys clued in about how we got here. I put out the poll. Trying to remember the movies that I put out on the poll. I believe I had The Godfather Part 2. I had The Raiders of the Lost Ark. I had Road to Perdition, and I believe I had Lawless, and that was recommended by Ian. So yeah, some really good movies. But ultimately, it was a three-way tie. Nobody voted for The Godfather 2, which I was a little disappointed in, but it was a three-way tie. Hey, Ian, how's it going? Welcome, Ian, my faithful moderator from London. Ian has joined us. Ian, I was just kind of explaining how we got to Road to Perdition. I had the polls. I have no idea if you had a chance to vote yourself, Ian. But we had some really good options. We had The Godfather Part 2. We had Raiders of the Lost Ark. We had Road to Perdition, and we had Lawless, which was one of your recommend. No, was it you? No, it might have been Josh. I think Josh recommended it, and Ian, you seconded that vote. So I'm like, okay, if my inner circle says this movie is worthy, I'm going to put it in there. And it was a three-way tie. In all fairness, it was three-way tie. Nobody voted for The Godfather 2, which I was a little disappointed in, but that's okay. I'm sure it'll come up at another point in time. But I had to use my powers of discretion. And yeah, of course you did, Ian. My faithful moderator never lets me down. Ian, of course, voted. There were only 3 votes casted from what I could tell from the final count. So it was a three-way tie. Apparently, we had three different directions. And I had to kind of use my powers of discretion to choose Road to Perdition. And, well, man, I rewatched it this morning. I've seen it several times. It's a movie that I'm like, wow, when you watch that movie from the vantage point of a hat person, there's so much going on, right? I got a little bit of the feel in many ways that I got from the first movie that we chose for Fedora Friday number 1, which was the original Godfather movie. Only because, one, the cinematography in this movie, in Road to Perdition, it is outstanding. Outstanding. So much to like here. And obviously, for all you guys that are not used to the Fedora Friday format, just at FYI, there will be spoilers in here. We're going to have spoilers. It's kind of assumed that you've already watched the movie when you come here. And if you haven't, that's okay, as long as you are comfortable with spoilers. So right there, this is kind of your warning, for the rest of this stream. Maybe what you want to do if you don't like spoilers is, not watch while you're live, and postpone that. Maybe watch the movie and then rewatch it when it's in syndication. That way, I don't ruin the movie for you. But yeah, it's all kind of fair warning. There's plenty of spoilers. There's plenty of photos. This is one where I don't even think I can even do justice to this movie without starting with slides. It is that much of a hat movie. And there's not like it's basically everyone, right? So this movie takes place in 1931. And that's why this nice bowler / derby is no accident. There's a reason for why I chose the bowler, and from the 1930s, no less. is that, well, you would refer to it at either, in the United States as a derby, not a bowler. It would be a derby hat. Over in the UK, they'll also refer to it as a derby. A derby. Also a Coke hat. It goes by many names. Actually, is the Coke hat right? I think I got that from Ian. I'm trying to remember if the Coke hat was a Hamburg or a bowler. Hey, Josh, how's it going? Good morning. Stuck at courthouse getting a new driver's license and homestead exemption. Yes, those are good reasons for going through that process. I do not envy you, Josh, but I do know that is that's a worthwhile endeavor, right? Homestead exemption will save you some money. Shout out to Alabama and for Florida for doing that. Josh said Coke is right. Okay, excellent. And the Billy Cock. So there you go. It's a hat, right, that is really beloved, right, within the fine hat community, because as my good friend Brad Bowers, who will be on this show at some point, aka the Hatted Professor, I watched a really great documentary with him. I'm actually going to try to provide the link to that in one of the posts, maybe sometime today. But you can watch the Hatted Professor do his thing, and he talks a lot about the bowler or the derby hat. And really talks about like why it's such a special hat. Josh says, I have plans on building one. Yes, I look forward to seeing that. Josh, by the way, that hat that you built and you've been showing for your customer is fantastic. You should be very proud. I have no doubt that your customer will be very proud to own that, to be honest. I mean, and I don't mean that to blow smoke. It's a fine looking hat. I know that you went through a little bit of the modifications. Again, I think that's what was going to happen when you are a hatter. I kind of talked about my last minute modifications for the hat that Paul is working on, or at least one of the hats, right? Everybody's already seen the Mets fedora, and then he's working on another fedora that actually is one of his seconds. It had a hole in it, and we come up with an idea. So if you haven't caught that, you can catch that on the last stream, and you can see me and Paul having a discussion in real time about our vision for that hat. And that was a hat that underwent some last minute modifications. Luckily, Paul was very gracious and was able to do that. Ian says, Mr. Coke was the first customer who commissioned one in 1849. Man, look at that history, man. Right? We're talking about well over 100 years ago, close to 100. Well, my math is probably not mathing correct, but we're talking about am I mathing right? Well, we're approaching 200 years since that, right? So in 2049, it will have been 200 years since Mr. Coke first commissioned one of these fine hats, right? That's amazing to me, And Josh, of course, the gentleman says thank you. Hey, no problem. Like I said, I don't say those things lightly. I'm a polite person, but if I don't like a hat, I'll just be silent, right? But I won't say a hat looks great if it doesn't, if I don't think it looks great. It's just I just rather say nothing if anything. I know not everybody does that. We don't have a lot of folks that choose to stay silent, even when I get negative feedback. And I've actually mentioned that before about like with when you have something that's a little bit more artistic and not somebody's style. You'll get inevitably, right? Especially when you're dealing with men, right? There's a lot of us men out there that are very opinionated. We're not shy about sharing our opinions. And it may not always come across as polite. And I guess that's okay. I choose to try not to be that way. I mentioned it before. If I ever come across as offensive, it's really not intentioned. On my Mets channel, I'm definitely a little bit more crass. Right on my sports channel, it's kind of like how you guys over in the UK treat soccer or football, as you guys will refer to it. You kind of just, as a guy, you get a little bit more primal, right? And you start really doing some things that otherwise, maybe a little bit of alcohol's involved, a little bit of spirits to raise the spirits, right? And that competition just brings it out of you. So yeah, on my Mets channel, I might be a little bit more colorful, right? maybe not colorful in this way, but in my language. I do wear my fedoras on my Mets channel, by the way, as well. So, but yeah, back to the topic at hand, which is again this fine hat. It's a relatively new addition to my collection, but it's one of my favorite hats. It's literally the only vintage bowler hat that I've owned up until this point. Right? If you guys joined us earlier in the life of this channel, you would have seen me on live preparing a brown bowler hat, which was a modern one, a wool modern brown bowler that was made by Hats in the Belfry. And I was preparing it for a customer for sale. It was going to get rehomed. That was a hat that I really liked. It actually was probably slightly too small for me. And I rehomed it because, well, it wasn't getting worn anywhere near as much as my other hats. And as much as I really liked that hat, I felt like it was better in a different home. And the gentleman that bought it, by all, from all appearances, is somebody that that might have been their first, I guess, fine hat. And he was really excited. He was also a very, very vibrant personality. He said that the hat wasn't for him. It was for one of his ladies, and I just like almost lost it right there in terms of like laughter, because, he was kind of doing the thing that guys tend to do when they're around other guys, which is talk about all the female friends that he has. He didn't go into details, which is great, because I wasn't there for that kind of conversation. But I couldn't help but just kind of I don't know, marvel at like the extent that we guys tend to brag about our social lives. Again, I try to refrain from that because, again, I feel like, I kind of subscribe to kind of that old adage: if you're there talking about it all the time, then you're probably not doing it right. There's like, if you got enough time to be sitting here and telling me about all of these conquests that you've had, then, well, I'm like, you would be out doing it, right? You would be here sitting here talking with a ugly face like me, right? You'd be talking out there with the ladies and actually doing, right? Instead of talking about it. But that's okay. That's just probably my own bias. He seemed like a fine bloke, and he really, really was happy. He was beaming when he saw the hat. And that's the most important thing about wearing a fine hat. Again, I'll say this ad nauseum to them blue in the face, that the most important thing about a hat is the way it makes you feel, especially the way it makes you feel when you put it on. If you want to know if a hat's right for you, make sure it fits and put it on and see how it makes you feel. If you don't feel a little like you don't stand a little taller, you don't feel a little bit more excited about life and about tomorrow, then, well, maybe that hat is not for you. It doesn't mean you don't buy it, right? Maybe it has to grow on you, but that could be a good easy way to tell if you have a hat right in front of you. And, right, let's say you walking down the boulevard, you go and you find your way into a hat shop or anywhere that you might find a fine hat, and you try it on, because, again, hat shops are such that they're not going to be opposed for you going in there and do a little window shopping, right? Do a little window shopping. Doesn't cost you anything. It might cost you if you end up buying something, but of course, right? Hopefully you're paying for that fine hat. You don't want to go and do the what we like to refer to in New York as the 5-finger discount, right? You don't want to do that. No. You pay that shop owner what they're asking for, or if it's too much money, see if they'll haggle, right? You'll be surprised at how many people do not haggle over prices, at a shop, because maybe they feel they're too good for it. Maybe you have that much coin that you don't need to haggle. That's okay. But I just want to put out that notion of negotiation is a bad thing. Negotiation is never a bad thing, right? It's like that famous quote: we must never negotiate out of fear, but we also must never fear to negotiate. I'm sure I butchered that because I butchered a lot of things. You can call me Bill the Butcher. That's also a really good movie. Shout out to Gangs of New York. Really good movie. Bill the Butcher. And we have my other faithful partner here, Paul. Paul, welcome.
Good afternoon.
Hey, thanks for joining us.
No, it's not my pleasure. I'm sorry I'm a little bit late, but
No, that's
better late
okay.
than never, as we say, you know?
Yeah, no problem. Let me make sure. I'm gonna try to just make sure that my volume's a little bit up. That way I can hear everything you have to say. And Josh just says, I just got a 7 3/4 flange from eBay by haggling. Yeah. So Paul, I was talking about the power of negotiation, right?
Yeah.
You know, you know, I was also talking about Gangs of New York. If you couldn't tell, Ian is my fellow movie buff. Again, I have a very high respect for Ian's movie knowledge and his book knowledge and just his general knowledge. So yeah, that's a great movie. That I don't know if that might be one that I cover in a future episode, a future Fedora Friday. But there are definitely some good hats, some good top hats in this movie. And it's it's got a great cast, right? Leo DiCaprio is the star of the movie. But for me, Bill the Butcher takes the cake. Everybody knows about Bill the Butcher. That performance was masterful, and it's iconic. So shout out to Bill the Butcher. Liam Neeson's also in that movie. Has a really good but very short role. But yeah, that's a different movie. But Paul, before I get into any particulars, hat news. I'm seeing a nice fine hat on top of your head. Let's talk about it.
Yeah, it's a beaver fur felt, 100% from FEPSA. It's about a 150 gram weight, so it's not too heavy.
Yeah.
This is a sort of nod to Ian, actually, because Ian had a green hat from it. I saw this in the pile, and I thought, I know, I'll put that on today. And it's just a classic hat, but it's one of those that's just on the edge of a trilby or a fedora. In fact, the actual brim itself, I think, is 6 centimeters. So that's quite a small, very classic sort of design, I think. And then just inside a nice straightforward one of my liners. So I really like it because it's a sort of, I guess it's got a little bit of pile on it, and you can see the fibers when you brush it. You can see the fibers going the right way, and of course green and a sort of a greeny grey color. It goes with anything really. So I just thought
great teardrop as usual.
Cool.
Yeah, that's excellent hat. And shout out to Ian. He also, if you haven't had a chance to check out Paul's channel, if you do, you'll get to see Ian's hat that he commissioned from Paul. And oh man, it's a fine one. Beautiful color combination. Ian, one day you'll have to kind of share what inspired that color combination. I don't know if I got that story from you and Paul. Paul, I don't know if you knew what the background is, how you guys came up with that color combination, but I'm interested to know.
It was led by Ian. Whether or not I don't know whether he'd seen anything on my channel or on my website, but I must admit I'm a big lover of green. I'll tell you why green, because we don't see green hats in the UK very often, and for me, in the wintertime I wear a lot of brown and sort of grey colors, I suppose, and I was fed up with brown hats and black hats and grey hats, and I thought, no, let's add a bit of color. And I thought, well, we're still a little bit staid in the UK, but I thought that something like this lighter color and the green and with the I'm just making another one here, which is a 13 centimeter crown, and I'm just putting the I guess it's a bronzy color, beigey color around the brim there. So I'm stitching it down and folding over and stitching it there, and then going to put a 50 mil grosgrain on it. So I'll be interested to see how that ends up, really. But yeah, I mean, it's a beautiful hat what Ian commissioned, and lovely proportions. Can't wait to see it on him. I really can't.
Yeah, absolutely. And the thing that struck me is that, and we talked about, the conservative market, fedora market. And I was always curious. I'm like, Paul, what do you think is like the right? So we already know that Ian's gotten some really great feedback, right, in his neck of the woods, well, your neck of the woods in London. I was just thinking that immediately my thought was, I wonder what the reaction is going to be because of that ribbon, that contrast color is a little bit more out there, but it's still subdued. it's it's kind of a way for those folks that are a little bit more reserved about the about the standing out. I think it's a nice entry. But what do you think, Paul?
I really like it. As you know, I made a similar wine color Homburg the other day, and I just think it's a nice warm color. And we do get asked time to time to do some zany colors and what have you, and then there are young ladies that like it. And in fact, we do have a number of hatters in the UK that specialize in wool hats of multicolours, a bit like Brian Forbes, but a UK version of them. There's one or two of those in and around London, and they're quite they're quite specialist in what they do. But I think for me the wine colour is a really nice trim, both on the brim and on the crown. And it's got multiple attractions in terms of colour. I mean, it'd be interesting to find out from Ian, if he feels comfortable wearing it with any particular colour or any colour. Some people only wear certain hats with certain colour suits or jackets or jumpers or whatever. Others will just, I just wear whatever I feel comfortable in, and most of the time it coordinates, But I like this with a nice beige or a green, jumper and a scarf or something that goes with it. Then it's nice. But it is a little bit towards the adventurous side for the UK.
Right. Correct. I love the fact that is a thing, because again, I mentioned this before. I feel like, I don't know how familiar you guys are with breakdancing, but in the 80s in the US, breakdancing, late 70s, early to mid 80s, breakdancing was huge. And now it actually took a step where after it started on the downside in the US, in Europe, it started to be on the upswing. Now it's in Asia. Now, if you go on Facebook and you see breakdancing, a lot of the main breakdancers are in Asia. And I just think there's something pretty beautiful about that. And I feel like that's an art, that's a dance art, but still, I feel like hats could have that same impact. We know about the bowler in its origins and how it migrated over into the US, and how it kind of became synonymous and a really important hat, historical hat, because it was one of those hats that kind of cut class barriers, right? It was one of those things. Yeah.
It was developed by a gentleman called Coke that actually was a landed gentleman, and he wanted a hat made for the workers to go out and beat in the fields, as I understand it. And he went to Lock & Co in London and asked them to make this hat, and that's where there's the alternative name as a bowler or a Coke, and that's how we know it in the UK anyway.
Yeah, or the Derby, right?
Derby,
the Derby, and we would say Derby, and you guys say Derby. I mean, I love that. The fact is that it has so many names is in itself, I think, indicative of the power of this style.
Yeah, I think I've got one somewhere. I'm just going to stand up and see if I've got one here. Yeah. Not in that one.
This part of the fun of having Paul on here is he's always got something, or he's in the process of creating something, and I feel like that's really the benefit.
Here we are. So this is a hat that I don't actually think has ever been worn. It's from the early 1900s, it's about 100 years old, and it's by a company called Falcon, which was a UK made bowler hat, and it's got silk all the way around here is silk, and it's just possibly for a lady because it's a very small size. But I just bought it as part of my collection because I just fell in love with the shape and the fact that it's of the age that it is, and what either very little or no use. It's just a very nice hat. Yeah.
Paul, just out of curiosity, what's the size of that hat? In centimeters, if preferably.
Yeah, let's see if I can tell you. I need to measure it here. So it's 6 7/8 UK, and I'll just make a note of that, and I'll find out for you. because I don't normally deal in such a small size. But I'll just
Yeah.
look up online whilst we're on here. Yeah.
Yeah. Only because I just became Facebook friends with a gentleman who has a smaller head, and he talked about the downsides. For me, I thought it was a complete upside that he had such a small head. So Ian says it's 56.
56.
This
Yeah.
gentleman
Thank
has,
you, Ian. Yeah, it's
Thank you.
56. Yeah.
All
So
right.
it's quite a small size, but there's a little bit of wear on it. But I just thought it's sometimes it's so nice just to have something like this, because when you're a hatter, you want to go back to what's been made in the past, learn
Yeah.
from it, enhance it with all the materials and the trim and so on that we've got available to us now.
Yeah.
We want to try and make hats that still harker back to the style and everything from bygone years, but perhaps are as good, if not better quality. Because bearing in mind, these guys had a lot of practice at making these. They made a really good hat. So we struggle, or I struggle, learning to get up to their speed. So that's why I sort of have a little collection of hats to learn from.
Yeah.
Anyway, that's the coat. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, I mean, again, the gentleman had size 54 centimeters. So,
Wow.
for me, I was like, okay, that's a very, very small head. But for me, I only thought about all the great possibilities of having such a small head. But he was like, actually, it's quite the opposite. I can't get, every time I try to look for a hat, they never have my size because somebody already bought it.
Yeah. Well, on the subject of size, I had a very interesting challenge today. If it's all right, I'll share it with you.
Oh, no, absolutely.
Okay. What happened was that an ongoing customer of mine, he actually bought a Stetson Stratoliner, which, funny enough, I was after as well. It was a size 59. I didn't get it. He won it. And he asked me, can I reduce a hat in size? I said, well, I can put padding behind it and I can do this and do that. And I said, look, send it over. Let's have a look. So it arrived yesterday and I had a look at it. And actually, I've done something that I've never done before. And I don't know whether it's been done before. And I've just posted up a video on my YouTube channel showing that I essentially made up another leather sweatband to 58 centimeters, and it dropped just inside, and it was a perfect fit inside of the 59 centimeters. And then I tacked it all the way around, and you actually wouldn't know that hat has now got 2 leather sweatbands in it. Now that might be a problem it might be a bit warm, but what it does, it gives the gentleman the size that he wanted, but also when he comes to sell it, he can just undo the stitching with scissors or take it out, and then it goes back and it's still got the original leather sweatband in it, which is so important when you want to maintain the brand and everything. So interesting how that worked out, but I was quite pleased actually how that did work out. Never done that before.
Yeah. You can see Josh's reaction. I'm sure that was clever. But basically I agree. For me, I'm like, okay, this is something, right? We know that you can go buy kits to size down a hat. I feel though that those kits, they're done for ease of use. In terms of, and there's probably a limit for what you can do. But I feel like nobody would not want to have that option that you basically implemented, Paul.
Well, yeah, I mean, it's I think if it was in a felt hat and you're wearing it in the summer, it'll be a little bit warm because of the 2 leather layers. But I think as Josh points out, it would be extra comfortable because you've got that extra padding, if you like, from the leather. It is a slightly heavier because obviously it's got additional leather in the hat. But when I saw it, and when I just thought, wow, okay, that's a plan for future. So you obviously couldn't do it for 2 sizes down or whatever, but to reduce the hat by 1 size without damaging the hat and just tacking it around, I think it's an ideal solution. And in the UK, I mean, I charged the gentleman an hour's labour, which is about £40. It's within the realms of a viable. He was very pleased anyway. Let's put it that way. So I think that was a good alternative. Anyway, I'm sorry to digress, but I just
no, not at all. I think, I mean, honestly, the second benefit that I thought of immediately was you get to preserve the original, right? Let's say you had a hat that you're like, okay, the second sweatband will take the brunt of the sweat, and now when you're ready to remove it, the original's intact and pretty much brand new.
Yeah. So I think as long as yeah, I'm sure he'll be happy when he gets it. And yeah.
Yeah, all
Good.
right. Well, thank you, Paul. Thanks for sharing. You blew my mind there. Like I said, I would have never thought to do that. But again, these are the things when you are in the craft, and you see, right, essentially, Paul is a problem solver. I think he's already outed himself as a major problem solver, and that's what we need in every field. Is somebody that can go and see a problem, see a need, and say, you know what, I've never done this, but if you'll indulge me, I'll experiment, and then we'll see what happens. We'll see how it lives.
Yeah. And that's what we did. And the gentleman worked with me on it. And I think both of us were pleasantly surprised. So I rang him back and did him a FaceTime. And yeah, he was very pleased. So.
Awesome, Paul. Thanks for sharing. That's fantastic. That should probably end up now being a core service that you could provide. Meaning, hey, if you ever need somebody to size something down, I have now a technique, and I'm sure you will find that technique in more iterations, or maybe it'll never come up again. But it's an offering.
Yeah, it sure is. Yeah.
Yeah, fantastic. Well, basically, in terms of, unless anybody else had any more hat news, we had the discussion for today was Road to Perdition. And I made a little bit, Paul, I'm not sure if how familiar you are with the movie, but again, you don't have to be. This movie, again, one of the ways that this movie departs from the first two movies is that you can't discuss this movie without pictures. No way. So the nice thing is today, for the first time ever, I actually set up the presentation ahead of time. Wow, look at me being proactive. So now no more fussing and having to have Paul. Well, it doesn't mean it won't happen, right? Because I remember this time. It doesn't mean I'll remember next time. Today, it happened. But you know what? Until it comes on screen, I won't celebrate. So let me see. Let me get it on screen, and then you guys can start. We can immediately start the conversation, because I feel like, one, this movie is beautifully shot. Probably, if not one of the most beautifully shot movies I have seen that I consider a hat movie. And that's up there with Godfather, both Godfathers, and any other movie I've ever seen. With no qualms, I have that recommendation. So let's bring it up. Okay. Already, like I see, you'll see two hats here. Obviously, one's in focus, one is not. But trust me, I have many more photos. But starting to talk about some of the protagonists. And I already mentioned, Paul, about the you don't watch this show and this series not expecting spoilers, right? So the photos sometimes will reveal a spoiler, but this is something where I don't even need to tell you about the characters so much, although they're great characters. Trust me. It's a star-studded cast here. We have Tom Hanks, Paul Newman, Daniel Craig, Stanley Tucci, and I'm sure I'm forgetting somebody here. Jennifer Jason Leigh. I don't know what the actor, the kid actor, but he did a fine job as well. But really star-studded cast here. And but besides that, the hats. Obviously, we see the right here is one of the protagonists, Michael Sullivan Jr. here in this flat cap. And I believe this is kind of a newsboy type flat cap. It has the flap in the back. Again, I purchased my first newsboy hat, which I've shown on photos. I don't think I've worn this on camera for one of the live streams yet. But I just started getting into flat caps because, well, one, I really like the look. I fought it for so long. I always had a Boston Scally cap that I consider kind of like, I don't consider it a fine hat, but it's functional. It looks good. They're made in China, so they're not like the best product ever. But, it got me started. And then we had the gentleman on the Fedora Lounge, Fabio, who has a great assortment of fine looking flat caps. And this movie starts off right away with Michael Sullivan and the flat cap. Paul, I don't know if you have anything to say about the flat cap in general.
Do you know, it's not something that I've ever owned, and not any other reason than I've just not got around to it. I think the nearest thing I've got to is in France. They have a Breton hat, which is like a Melton wool, and it's like a skull cap. And for quite a while, I always kept one of those in my pocket because being being without hair, out in the cold or in the rain, a skull cap hat was a really useful thing to have in your pocket. So that's about the closest I've got. But no, I like the look, but I just haven't tried it.
Yeah. I was in the same boat, Paul. Honestly, I kind of like, again, this is a relatively new. We always talked about our hat journeys, how we don't stay stagnant, right? You shouldn't stay stagnant. You should never stop learning. Same with our collections. And now, when I found this hat, and I found another one that I don't think I've actually worn ever. It's just I just bought it, and it's gonna come out when it comes out. But let's see here. We got Ian that says it's sometimes called a Gatsby hat. Yeah, shout out to the great Gatsby. Yes. It is a kind of a hat that has a lot of different meanings, and depending on the character and the type of signaling that you want to do when you put it on. You can certainly be high society with one of these flat caps or a newsboy hat and look completely completely okay and in place in society. Again, we talked a lot about the virtual, sorry, not the virtual signal, but just the signaling, right? The communication that we do with the style of hats that we wear, regardless of whether we do it intentionally or not, we're communicating to the outside world. And right away, we see this flat cap. And I'll show you another angle or another scene here of this flat cap. You can see, obviously, this boy, this movie has a gamut of emotions, just like a good movie would. But I'll talk a little bit more about this movie. But this boy, this is very much, right? You can obviously imagine that this boy is a central character here, and this is very much a family movie, right? Even though like everybody will call it a gangster movie, kind of like they would about The Godfather. The Godfather has gangsterism in it, but it's very much about father-son dynamics. So here, Ian says made famous, the flat cap. Oh, the Newsboy. I believe it was the Newsboy. I got to get around to Peaky Blinders. I know the allure and how much people love Peaky Blinders. I just haven't gotten around to it. If you like Peaky Blinders, I will also put in a recommendation. Again, this is kind of a blind recommendation for somebody that hasn't seen Peaky Blinders, but Boardwalk Empire. Boardwalk Empire is a great hat show by HBO, I believe, from the same folks that brought you Sopranos and The Wire. There's a show called Boardwalk Empire. It stars Steve Buscemi. Steve Buscemi, I've noted in other live streams about he had another iconic hat role in the movie King of New York. Newsboy is smaller. Okay, perfect. Thank you. Again, I'm still learning, Ian. Thank you for again. I'm trying. I understand, the size difference. I'm still appreciating that nuances of the flat cap. So that's why I'm lucky to have my fellow hat nerds here to kind of give me the inside scoop. That's, again, this character in this movie is about father-son dynamics. So I'm going to go into the next photo, which is actually a hatless photo, but it tells you the main cast, right? We already met Michael Sullivan Jr., and who we have here are the three other main characters in this story. Starting from left to right, we have Tom Hanks, who plays Michael Sullivan Sr., or Mike Sullivan. To his right, we have Paul Newman. He plays John Rooney, which is kind of like The Godfather, right? This is set in 1931, the outside of Chicago, right? So it's a city called Rock Island. I don't know how far it is from Chicago, but it seems like it's a decent enough distance from Chicago, right? So this is a gangster movie. John Rooney, played by Paul Newman, is the main gangster. But we have the two dads, right? Here we have the two dads. Tom Hanks is Michael Sullivan Jr.'s dad. Paul Newman is Daniel Craig's dad. Everybody knows Daniel Craig from James Bond, right? But before he did James Bond, he had this role as Connor Rooney, the misfit son of John Rooney, who is a very, very well-respected mobster in Rock Island in 1931. And I believe John Rooney's character is based on a true gangster from that area. But again, don't quote me on this. This is kind of what I've heard. But we already have here the very four protagonists, and we have a father-son dynamic, right? there's several father-son dynamics. They have Mike Sullivan with Michael Sullivan Jr. We also have the father-son dynamic between Paul Newman, right, John Rooney, and Connor Rooney. But there's the greater father-son dynamic between John Rooney and Michael Sullivan, because essentially, very much like Tom Hagen in The Godfather, Mike Sullivan is kind of like an adopted son of John Rooney, right? So he was kind of like an orphan, very similar to Tom Hagen. And John Rooney kind of took a shine to Michael Sullivan as a boy and raised him. And Mike Sullivan became kind of like a button man, a hit man, the hired muscle for John Rooney. And you can see now that you have two brothers who aren't really brothers, right? One is the real blood son of John Rooney, and Mike Sullivan, who is the golden child, right? He is very important to John Rooney. And you can see why there's tension here now, right? You have two kind of like brothers that aren't really blood related, and one of them is envious of the other because his own blood father doesn't respect him in the way that he respects a son that's not even really his son. Really powerful dynamics here, right? So that's why I chose to show this photo, even though this is a photo that contains no hats, because that really is the crux of the movie, is all these father-son dynamics playing into and family relationships. And obviously there's tension here. Paul, I want to make sure that I give you a chance to speak, so please don't.
I'm happy listening. I'm honestly, it's a long time since I've seen the film, but I thoroughly enjoyed it. So no, please.
Awesome. Thank you. And I'll move forward. Okay, so this is not a great shot, but I wanted it right. I've already introduced Connor Rooney, and there's a couple things I want to point out about this shot here, right? Obviously, this is a pivotal scene in the movie. It's a murder scene that happens kind of early in the movie, right? So the person that is committing the murder here in a fedora with the gun pointed is Connor Rooney, right? So this is like one of the few scenes that you see Connor Rooney in a hat, right? He's about to commit a murder, and who's watching here in out of focus? This is a very cinematic shot. The reason why it's so cinematic is because this started off as a graphic novel. So Road to Perdition, before it became a movie, it was a graphic novel. And Ian, I have no idea if you've read this graphic novel. You are my book reader. But if you haven't, if you're a fan of graphic novels, I actually own this. I was gifted this graphic novel. I haven't read it yet. Again, I'm gonna make that that confession to you all, is that I love the movie. I'm not an avid reader, but I do own the graphic novel. One of these days, I will get around to reading it. And it goes to show you, if you see this shot, it's classic graphic novel type of cinematography. And obviously, I don't know if it really goes, bears mentioning, but the person they're killing is, the idea is this was a person that made a spectacle earlier on during a function that both Connor Rooney, Michael Sullivan, and John Rooney were attending, right? This was John Rooney's function. He was at a funeral, and the funeral was for this gentleman who's seated here. It was his brother, and he had something very nasty to say or imply about John Rooney. So what happened was John Rooney sent his son, and even though Connor did not want it, he sent also Mike Sullivan with them here to talk to this gentleman. They're, according to Mike Sullivan, they're here to talk. But Connor has his own plans. Connor decides to execute this gentleman. Let's see here. Ian says, it's from a DC comic, as you said, which was based on the true story of 1920s Quad City gangster John Looney. All right. That's exactly, I believe that is correct. From my recollection, it is based on a gangster called John Looney. And then for whatever reason, they decided to call the gentleman Rooney instead of Looney. Maybe because Looney sounds a little goofy. I don't know. I don't know the answer to that. I'm speculating here. But this is one of the few scenes that you see Connor Rooney in a hat. It's out of focus, obviously, for Mike, but it's a very powerful scene. And it really is it sets off the chain of events that you see later on. So this is really hard to tell like about this fedora. There was, when I watched the movie, there was a scene that I really wanted to show of Connor Rooney and Mike Sullivan together in a car, and it really showed Connor Rooney's fedora really well, but I couldn't find it like online, and I didn't have the video to be able to take a screenshot. Meaning, I have it on my Plex server, but I don't have it on my computer, so I couldn't show you that shot. So my apologies for that. But I'll go into the next photo because now we're going to start seeing. Now we'll start focusing. That's all I'm going to give for Connor Rooney. We'll focus on Mike Sullivan and his hats. There's a lot of photos here, so be forewarned. Here we have at least one shot here that shows at least some of that brim that Mike Sullivan. Remember, Mike Sullivan is a gangster. He is a button man. He is a hitman for John Rooney. So he's he's all business, especially with the hat. Right? When you see Mike Sullivan wearing his fedora, he's usually about to take action and maybe commit some violence, to be honest. So you can see how the director here, Sam Mendes, incorporates hats to kind of show and give the character a lot more depth, a lot more seriousness, and a lot more kind of a sinister presence, right? When you see this hat on Mike Sullivan, you know he means business. And then we'll just go into some more photos. You can see this is just a beautifully shot movie. So you can see that crown height. Look at that crown height on Mike Sullivan here. I'll zoom in a little bit, and you guys can see just beautiful. And this is like one of the infamous scenes where I like to call the rain scene, right? And when you know, if you see the movie or rewatch the movie, you'll know what I mean when I say the rain scene. It's just something right out of a graphic novel. Just really beautifully done by Sam Mendes. I'm not familiar with Sam Mendes, the director, and what else he's done. But if it's anything like Road to Perdition, oh man, this guy's talented. You know, he just has an eye and just captured that graphic novel feel and just brought these characters to life. And the costume designer, I forget the name, Adam Wolski, I believe is the name. Whoever, I believe that was the gentleman that was responsible for the costuming. I think he nailed the period, right? 1931, Chicago, like it's not Chicago, it's Rock Island, but Chicago's like the nearest big city, right? That aesthetic of the high crown, you know, kind of like the, you know, he's got it nailed. Again, I'm not from that era. I couldn't tell you for a fact, but from what I know, he nailed the aesthetic for this movie. Again, not an uncommon scene here of Tom Hanks and his Mike Sullivan character. This is a tough guy, you know. So again, when he wears that fedora, he's got a 1911. I don't know if we have any gun nerds that watch our show, you know. But Mike Sullivan has a 1911. I believe that would be a Colt 1911. So it's a 45 caliber pistol, and it's a single stack. Anyway, I'm not going to go into details. A lot of people don't like talking about guns and all that stuff, but it's, you know, it's a thing. It's a machine. So we got Ian says, Mendes directed Jarhead. Wow. Jarhead's amazing. And the Bond film Skyfall and Spectre. Wow. I did not know that. Those are awesome, awesome movies. And now you can see the link to Daniel Craig. Wow. All right. Josh says, yes, Colt 1911. All right. My core here is coming in. Shout out to Josh for confirming that. I basically guessed, right? So if you're out in the United States, obviously, you know, gun culture is a lot more prevalent here than the UK. Obviously in the South, I'm technically part south of the Mason-Dixon. So Virginia and any of the southern states, there's a lot more gun ownership and more gun rights and gun laws or gun friendly laws, as opposed to like New York City, the tri-state area where I grew up at. So, you know, anyway, I won't belabor that point. I don't like to get political here. Yeah, here we go. A Tommy gun. Again, part of that rain scene. This scene, I think, is like, you ever watch the movie Heat, right? If there's a movie called Heat with Robert De Niro and Al Pacino, it came out in 1995. I believe it was directed by Michael Mann. And that movie had an iconic shootout scene, right? Everybody knows it. Like if I mention the shootout in Heat, everybody knows what I'm talking about because it was an epic shootout. Actually, that shootout, a very real shootout, very similar to that, occurred in, I believe, in California, where two men basically were in armor, essentially body armor, and they had the whole LAPD SWAT team against them, and they were like they made it a real epic gunfight. Again, I'm not glamorizing that, but it just shows you that sometimes art imitates life, life imitates art. So again, I just want to keep scrolling through some of these photos to give you a flavor. Again, if you haven't seen this film, I highly recommend it. If you have seen it, I say watch it again from the vantage point of a hat nerd, because it's one of those. Look at the face. Look at that face that Tom Hanks puts forward. Now remember, if you're a fan of Tom Hanks and you know his arc, Tom Hanks did not start off as a very serious actor. He was a comedic actor, right? So if you watch movies like Volunteer, Splash, The Man with the Red Shoe, Bachelor Party, these are like, he was a slapstick actor. It probably wasn't until he made the movie Philadelphia, right? Philadelphia came out in 1992, is when now Tom Hanks was put on the map, right? He was already well known, but he was kind of like that handsome leading man. Serious actor is when he started like doing movies like Philadelphia, obviously Forrest Gump, The Terminal, and all the great movies, right? A Man Called Otto, which was a very recent movie that he did. This man is very talented, and he nailed this movie. He did it. That face. Remember, I talked about like that face that people give when they're farmers. That my family is connoted. He has that similar face on him. This is a guy that doesn't suffer any fools. This shows how good fedoras can be in the rain, although not recommended. I agree. Again, this is a tool, right? In 1931, you wore a hat like this because it was a tool to keep you protected from the elements, And if you're a hitman, like Mike Sullivan is, it also allows you to go and commit a crime in public and maybe escape, right? Again, I'm not trying to glorify something illegal, but for this man, this fedora works on so many different levels, right? It makes him. You'll see a guy like this, and he's going to go collect money or send a message, right, so to speak. You're not messing with this guy. Like Sam Mendes really drives it home, and Adam Wolski, the costume designer, that this is a guy, again, and the funny thing is that this is Tom Hanks, who everybody like. If you're like me from the 80s, this is a goofy guy. This fedora makes him, and this trench coat and his whole outfit and his face make him a guy. I don't want to mess with that guy. And this reminds me of Paul when Paul mentioned about like when he puts on the fedora and he has this full suit and that image, right? And again, Paul's not there to go shoot somebody. Paul's there to conduct business, right? But he still Paul's also there. Like when I'm there, when I want to negotiate, I want the person across from me on the negotiation table, right, to know that I mean business, right? Like I'm not a pushover, right? We can send those messages without killing somebody or breaking somebody's legs, right?
I'm glad to hear it.
Yeah. Paul, you have anything to say about that?
I don't break legs.
Exactly. Paul's a nice guy and he's a gentleman. But again,
I think a good point you bring up though, and I think Josh. Ian was saying how good the rain is that back in the day, as you say, these were working man's hats. They were hats, actually doing a job. Whereas today, I think I certainly wear a hat, and I'm very mindful that if it's going to rain, then I'll take a backpack, put it in there, and have an umbrella as a backup or whatever, so that the hat doesn't get spoiled because they're an investment, and it takes a while that. If you get rain on it, what we see today is rain has got lots of dust in it, and of course that dust comes out and comes down into the hat and fibers and creates more of a problem of staining and getting it off. So really and truly, today we're a lot more careful about our hats than they were, especially those that are collectors, than those back in the time, because it was just an everyday, like putting your overcoat on. You just put your hat on.
Yeah, and basically here, what I'm trying to allude to with all of this is that even the rain here is a character in this movie, because it really sets up why you're like, okay, if Mike Sullivan is a guy that knows what he's doing and he's not to be trifled with, of course he's going to go and massacre a bunch of people in the rain. The fedora, the suit, the face, and the rain are no accident. It's a perfect, right? He's going to go commit the perfect murder because this man is not to be trifled with. It's just so, it brings me chills, to be honest, right? Yeah, Ian mentions acid. Yeah, exactly. Let's see what we got. We got Josh, another comment here. I'm of the old mindset. I wear my hats in all weather, and that's how I build them for that. Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. We talked about the Akubra, right? The Akubra I wore the other day. That's not a hat, right? Even though the Style Master was meant to look good, but Akubra did not make the Style Master any less rugged than their other hats. It's still a rugged hat that's meant for all weather, right? It's kind of like Akubra is Australia's answer to Resistol, right? On the United States front, Resistol would be that brand that's our Akubra, so to speak. Yeah. You know, and I don't know if the UK has one, Paul.
Well, we have. What's this one I've got here? This is a brand called Falsworth, this is a woolen hat. It's the only woolen hat I've got. I got caught out one day and needed a hat, so I just bought a woolen hat. But Falsworth, I guess, is a make that's still making hats out of Manchester, and they make good everyday hats that people are buying. You know, just at a budget, to be honest with you. Yeah.
No, that's great to know. See, Paul, I feel like I know very little besides the major brands, right? So there's so many brands like Scots of London. You know, that hat, I didn't know that was a thing, and that was a beautiful hat. You know, I can't wait for that to arrive, to be honest. You know, I'm just excited for that one as the other two, to be honest, Paul.
Yeah, well, it's a lovely hat. I think we've got lots of hatters that align themselves with retailers and you know, fashion retailers back in the day, and I suspect that many of them went by the way, because if you walk around London now, there aren't anywhere near as many retailers selling hats or decent hats, should I say. You know, they're selling baseball caps and things, but you know, this time next week, Ian and I will be out there looking in the shop windows and probably inside, and you know, having a chat with the people. So hopefully we'll see some nice hats.
I'm jealous. I am jealous of you guys because, again, Paul, I'm already jealous of where you live, right? So we talked. If you haven't seen this before, in one of the past live streams, Paul went into like some of the walks that he goes on, right? And I feel like that's such a great thing. You know, I'm a fan of walking. But if I had a walk where I could go outside and go and visit a hat shop or a hat maker, and have that, like I call them circuits. I'll have a circuit like that. Oh my gosh, who knows? You know, maybe my channel will be a lot more, you know, a lot bigger, and then we'll get a lot more crazy ideas. But that's okay. You know, I live where I live. But Paul, you are lucky.
Yeah, I think we have cities, obviously a lot of them, and clearly London's very busy. But we're lucky to live in a semi-rural place, and we've got some nice parks and a golf course nearby, and it's nice. So, and you know, there's lots of nice places around. It's just whatever lifestyle you want, really. But what being a hatter has enabled me to do is to look at how I can change my lifestyle, and that's nice, and that's another thing that is good to try and support people like Josh and others who are coming in, because wouldn't it be nice to be able to actually you know, work at something that you really enjoy and actually make a living that will give you a lifestyle. That's probably the ultimate. I think it's too late for me. I'm just topping up my latter years, but certainly it's a lot of enjoyment.
Yeah, definitely not too late, Paul, because you're doing it. Like I said, you may have some years on me, but I feel like you can run laps around me in terms of what you get done. Right. So running a business is not easy. You know, and Paul has, you know, he has several businesses, and those are huge undertakings, and it just goes to show you that, you know, no matter what, no matter how old you are, no matter what your circumstances, you know, you may not have done it like right. You may not have had like like myself, I didn't have a channel a few months back. I didn't have one. I had a YouTube channel that I never really used. Now I have one, and I have actually, you know, almost 50 subscribers. I know that's not a huge number, but again, your circumstance is, you're not set in stone, right? Just because you're not there now doesn't mean that tomorrow you can't be doing that. And like Paul is a perfect example of that, because again, he finds this hat hobby is just one of many things that he does, right? It's only one part of his life journey and his identity. And he wears many hats in many respects, right?
Yeah, thanks, Ian.
Yeah, that's right. Paul's hats will survive. That's exactly. But I mean, you're hitting the nail right in the head. Paul's already gone into it. The reason why Paul does this is for legacy. You know, nobody gets out of this life game alive. Everybody knows this.
I mean, you know, it would be great. We talk about films. It would be great to have a film where actually the hat tells the story. So you know, you buy a secondhand hat, you put it on, and all of a sudden you're in that person's shoes and you're working through their lives, and your hat collection tells you a whole story of all these different characters that may have worn the hats over the years. That to me would be a great story.
Paul, you brought something up, and you wouldn't believe me, but I thought of the same thing on one of my walks, right? I don't even know if I've ever shared this, but this is, again, I know nothing of movie making, but I've always had kind of a secret desire to be able to produce a movie. But again, it would have to be like, maybe, who knows, maybe one of you guys that are watching this really know how to film and know how to create something. I'd love to be involved in something like that, because I feel like what Paul just described is very similar to an idea that I had about a hat telling a story, right? We know that hats are transformative. Hats make you feel a certain way. If you feel a certain way, you're going to do certain things that you otherwise wouldn't do, right? You could do some sinister things like the gentleman here, or you could do some really great things like be a philanthropist, or who knows what could happen. But because hats make you feel a certain way, usually a good way, you do good things, and you do big things that are really good, right? You know, if you have a lot of money, you could do some really great good out there. And that's why, like I said, I never, ever poo-poo the idea of, you know, money is the root of all evil, because again, I know a lot of people with lots of money, they do really great things with that money, and they're fine individuals. Money did not make them evil. But you know, I won't belabor that. Josh says the Adam Sandler film The Cobbler is like that. Oh, wow, I have to catch that. I like Adam Sandler. I saw you know, the newish one that he got really big acclaim for. I can't remember the one where he's the jewelry owner guy. I don't know. I'm probably butchered that, but you know the movie I'm talking about. I'm sure Ian will mention it, or Josh. But The Cobbler I have not seen, and now I'm going to see it.
It's a good film. Yeah.
Okay. So Paul, you're familiar.
Yeah.
All right. I guess I'm in doubt.
Yeah. No. It's I won't spoil the plot, but it's good to sit down and just get lost in it, really.
Yeah. Oh, is this one that would be a good Fedora Friday candidate?
There's no hats in it, I don't think.
Okay. Well, you know what? I mean, I'll watch it anyway, and then I'll make a judgment call as to whether we're going to put them. I mean, at some point, we're going to do enough movies. We're going to have to need to branch out, right? That's why Fedora Friday is not just about movies. It's going to be about pop culture in general, music, musicians, art, anything that I can connect to hats. Because again, I love movies, and we started off this way. It's not sustainable to just stay to movies. At some point, I am gonna do them all. And thank you, Josh. Uncut Gems is the movie that I was referring to. Another Adam Sandler movie. He was actually really acclaimed for this role, and I happen to agree. He did a great job. So shout out to Adam Sandler. You know, again, another guy that kind of has tried to transform. He hasn't done the transformation that Tom Hanks has done. But is also a guy that everybody knows from Happy Gilmore, Billy Madison, a lot of these goofy SNL-based movies. But he is a serious one. He happens to be a very, very nice individual. That's one thing that everybody says about Adam Sandler that works with him on movies, is that he's very generous. You know, he's not. I think he had at one point gifted a brand new car to like all his castmates. And he tends to like to work with his friends, right? So if you're one of his friends, you're probably going to be in one of his movies. And I think there's something beautiful about that. It's kind of like a little bit of a family. So shout out to Adam Sandler. I know a lot of people don't like his shtick, so to speak, but I think there's a place for Adam Sandler. All right, so we'll go on with the photos here because, like I said, there's a decent number one. This is a nice side profile shot of Mike Sullivan. Again, you see that look he's giving? He's actually looking at his son. So if you're not familiar with this scene, this is a scene right before that they're going to attend that funeral, that wake, that chain of events starts happening, and you can see when your dad, like anybody that has grown up with a dad like this, has seen this look. He's like, "Don't F with me," look. You know what I mean? Like when I speak, you better do as I say, or else. Ian says, "I have given much thought as to whom I shall leave my hats to in my will." Wow, that's a great topic.
Yeah.
Wow, Ian, you just blew my mind. Paul, what do you think?
Oh, I think it's something that I've sort of contemplated because I've probably got 100 hats kicking around the house.
Yeah.
And you know, my family doesn't really know the value of the hats.
Yeah.
And you know, value is always something that somebody will dictate by what they're prepared to pay for it. But I would like to think that you know, they can find their way into the hands of people that would appreciate and use them. You know, so it is something that you know, I'll give some thought to. And I think Ian's right. You know, it's just thinking how to set that out. You know, it's because it means a lot to us. You know, it's not. It's something that may not mean a lot to somebody else, but it is part of our DNA, if you like, that's made up a certain part of our life, and it reflects what we do. And I know Ian said before, now he's a musician, and I think you know, if you've worn a hat on stage, if you've had a particular you know, upbringing, what have you, then it all falls into line. That's interesting. I'm not aware of. I know the Fedora Lounge, but I'm not sure. Is there an auction on there that you can, a bit like eBay or what?
I believe what Ian's mentioning is actually something that I believe I've also seen, is that when a Fedora lounger passes away, sometimes you will see their hats for sale. So if somebody's really close, remember this happens just like very similar to like you and Ian, right? When two Fedora loungers are in close proximity, they tend to get a lot closer because they're like, oh man, my fellow tribesman is like maybe a one short car drive away. And they start becoming really real life buddies in person. And what happens is when one of us falls, sometimes the family will know, hey, we have all these hats. What should we do? You know, or the family knows that the gentleman already said that when I pass, I want my hats to be sold off and I want them to go to a good home, right? It's an extension of that concept of wanting to rehome a hat and make sure that the home is somewhere where it's going to be loved and appreciated and preserved. And hopefully that cycle keeps perpetuating, where maybe that person be like, listen, this hat belonged to John. John, I respect him too much to have this hat go to the wrong hands. You know, for me, I would personally, I would like to see either something like this, like a Fedora Lounge auction, or you know, maybe an auction that maybe the money goes to charity, right? Maybe some kind of foundation. Maybe that's what we need is a actual hat foundation. Maybe one exists. I don't know. I've never looked it up. But if there was a hat, me and Paul talked about the idea of generosity, right? How do we give back? And we talked about the idea of finding, right? We all know how Paul got into this hat hobby. He had a health scare, and I feel like that's not something that just Paul went through. There's people right now going through that same thing that Paul went through, and they could really use something that's a source of comfort, right? Right. We all talked about. Everybody knows about the kid with their teddy bear, right? Teddy bears serve a function, and a lot of adults still have teddy bears because it's a source of comfort, right? You surround yourself things that bring you strength, they bring you comfort, and that hat could be that teddy bear for that person, that adult, that didn't even know that they needed it. There's something beautiful about that. So Ian says, I bought my Adams hat in one. I bought my Adams hat in one new old stock from a closed down shop. Look at that. That is such an age-old story. Like I've seen that, right? Morgan bought a lot of her Borsalinos from Bencraft Hatters. Now, Bencraft is not closed down, don't get me wrong. That's alive and well, and they're doing well. But he had a lot of old stock, Steve Goldstein did, of Borsalinos that were considered, remember we had that conversation about pre-bankruptcy. But again, support your local hat shop, right? If Ian supported Paul, Paul has an online presence, not a physical hat shop. Although who knows, maybe one day Paul will open up his house and make part of it a hat shop. Wouldn't that be cool? I mean, maybe Paul's wife would have other ideas. Paul, make sure you stay married.
Maybe a step too far, yeah.
Yeah. Ian says, I am leaving an expensive concertina to a young player who can't afford one. Man, wow. Ian, you are my hero. Ian is a hero, as if he already wasn't. Like, that is such a beautiful thing. That's almost like tear, like you almost like want to hold back the tears that people think of these things. And, you know, again, to bring things back into more of a practical advice, estate planning is a thing that we should all be thinking about, right? Unless you don't care, right? If you don't care what happens to your things and to your money and to whatever, but I feel like legacy is part of that conversation, right? How do I go and get my things that meant so much to me to continue meaning something to somebody else and not find its way in some attic that somebody finds and covered in moss? Yeah, Ian says a very imperfect one. Listen, you know, I happen to ascribe to the notion of functional asymmetry, right? The idea behind functional asymmetry, I've never heard that term before. I kind of made that up. But the idea that things are imperfect for a good reason, even if that reason was like by happenstance. And there's actually a really good tie to that. One day I'll reveal that tie of why Luke is such a big believer in functional asymmetry. But that maybe at the 50 subscriber mark, I'll reveal that. But yeah, functional asymmetry. That's essentially the idea that, yeah, of course it's imperfect. It was meant to be that way. And that maybe that imperfection, if it was perfect and if it didn't exist, maybe it wouldn't mean anything to you, right? We talk about the fedora that I'm getting from Paul that had the hole. I never mentioned this to Paul, but the reason why that fedora spoke to me is because it had that hole in it, right? I would have not bought that hat without that. Well, maybe I would have. Who am I kidding? I might have still bought it. It was beautiful. But I had Paul not just only sell me that hat, I had him commemorate that hat. And you can see that hat in my past live stream, and had him put a little bit of a matching Band-Aid on that hole to say and celebrate it. Now that hat means that, who knows, maybe that will be my most favorite hat because it has that imperfection. It's perfectly imperfect. Yeah, the cross is a nice touch. Yeah, Paul, you hit it out. You hit it out the park, my man.
I must say, I do like it. I wasn't sure about it, but when I completed it, I thought, you know, that the balance of that was really cool. I thought it was good. So I'm going to explore that type of thing more to sort of try and appeal to perhaps some younger clientele. But it looked good. Yeah.
Yeah, and that's the thing. Again, Paul, I don't even know if we've ever discussed why that felt had a hole. My assumption is maybe it just had. Maybe the process.
I bought a random lot from FEPSA, and they just threw in some extra felts for me to sort of play with, and that was one of them. And it happens to be a mixture of beaver and rabbit, so it's a nice felt, nice and soft and pliable, a really comfortable hat, you know. But it's got that little pinhole of a hole and imperfection. So you know, it can only ever be sold as being imperfect, but. I think that was a nice touch to finish it off.
Yeah, and you never know. Like I said, it could be a thing where people see that And they're like, Paul, I need you to recreate this. He's like, all right, but you know, you may not get one with a hole, but maybe I can still recreate the Band-Aid for you, right?
Yeah, a wounded hat. I like that. Yeah.
Yeah, a wounded hat, exactly.
Yeah.
Again, we all know, like, and if you go and you talk to enough hatters, they will always talk about, oh man, that rip, that something happened in the process, right? And again, using Bob Ross term, everybody knows Bob Ross, the painter. He would talk about there's no mistakes, there are only happy accidents. He's a big hippie with the afro, right? And he would paint, and he'd like, oh, I goofed that up, but you know, there's no such thing as mistakes. They're happy accidents. And what a great way to term something, right? A happy accident.
Yeah, somebody always like it. You know, it's in you know, whatever hat you're making, if you don't think it's the ideal hat that you were trying to create, somebody else might do. But I think that's part of the thing with creating something is that you like a near perfection situation, and life's not like that. You know, the creating of this is not a perfect thing to do. And in fact, I've already mentioned before now that I've been over several of my hats and remade them, and I'm sure Josh will have that experience. It's but it's something that you know, you end the day, well, I end the day by walking back into my hat room and you know, better than it I, and I just pick up hats and look at them and think, oh, I could do that better. Right, put that on the bench for tomorrow. I'll have another go at that. And it helps you self-learn as well as become more content with those hats that you think, okay, I could have done that a bit better.
Yeah.
So, you know, it's a learning process.
Yeah, you don't even know. Like, there's so many ideas that hat has already kind of, you know, already caused in my brain, right? I talk about my reflection and all the thinking I do on my walks, and that hat, I'm especially excited about it, Paul, because I'm like, I can already see, right? And then if you've been following my Facebook posts and you've been following like music, that's something that I borrowed, again, not hopefully not copied. I borrowed when I saw Brian Forbes' post. Brian Forbes, if you watch his posts on Facebook, he always has music, right? Sometimes the music is linked to the hat that he's advertising, right? And for me, I'm not selling a hat, right? I'm selling hats, meaning the hat hobby. That's what I'm selling. Now, if you want to buy a hat, obviously I'm not amenable to making money. But when I make my post, it's a nod. That's a nod. It goes to show you how influenced we are by our surroundings. Like Brian, maybe even Brian doesn't even recognize it. I hope he does. If he watches this, you caused that change in me. And I'm like, yes, I love music. I'm going to have music in my post because music is a big part of who I am. And there's music, theme music, right? And hats probably have theme music and we don't even know it. Anyhow, that's great conversation, guys. I mean, you guys have killed it. Ian, you blew my mind with the where my hats are going to go. Where do I want them to go? I probably won't be able to get that thought out of my head for probably several days at least. Okay, so here we go. Some more. Again, I keep showing photos of the rain scene because it's so beautifully shot, and we see so many great silhouettes, like Josh mentioned, or it was Josh or Ian mentioned earlier about the silhouettes in this movie. Again, no accident. This is very graphic novel, but you can see the shot. I'm like, you don't have to see everything. This is what the director wanted you to see. He wanted you to see more of a silhouette, and he's holding a Tommy gun. Again, really powerful. I'll show you some more photos here. Again, this is a scene that I will get back to in a little bit because this is, if you guys seen the movie, you know what's happening here. But I'll wait until a little bit later to show that. Again, nice little shot here. This looks like when again, I don't remember this scene per se, but this looks like when Michael Sullivan decided to go to Chicago to go visit, I believe, Frank Nitti. Frank Nitti is a real gangster, Chicago-based gangster. Hopefully, I got the name right. But he was played by Stanley Tucci. It's either that scene or when he's about to rob the bank, like Al Capone. I think it was Al Capone's bank, or maybe it was Rooney's bank. He robs a bank because he knows it holds gangsters' money, right? So he's kind of like, okay, I'm going to be a little bit of a Robin Hood here. I'm going to hit them where they're hurt. And, well, I don't know if he gives away the money. I think he does give away the money in the movie. But he's there to go and hit them where it hurts, which is the pocketbook. So just to give you an idea of what's going on. Okay, so this is now getting into Rooney, John Rooney's character. And you can see the hat that he's wearing here. Again, I'll try to go in a little bit. You can see Michael Sullivan Jr. from behind, and you can see the face, right? He's looking at Michael Sullivan Jr. like he's like this is my grandson, right? Talking about family dynamics. That is a hardened gangster about to embrace a young boy as if it was his grandson. And if you watch the movie, you'll see, wow, you would think that this is his own flesh and blood grandson in here. And so there's a tough guy being very soft, right? And you can see his image, right? Besides the smile, you look at this guy and you're like, don't mess with this guy. This old man's somebody. And obviously you see the car behind him and you also think the same thing. You're like, wow, don't mess with this guy. But here he's basically lovable grandpa, John Rooney, who happens to also be, he owns the town and is a murderer. So the hat that he's wearing, and at first glance, it kind of looks Hamburgish to me, right? So I don't think that's an accident, right? So I believe this is an actual fedora, but it has a shape that kind of very similar to what I thought about Michael Corleone's hat, which, we kind of thought, okay, it is a proper Hamburg. I think that's the conclusion that we drew, but I felt that I got the same vibe here. This is a fedora that is kind of shaped to be a little bit more formal, a little more significant of stature, right? This is the guy that he's well off. He's also a guy you don't mess with. And one sees the subtle hierarchy of hats worn by the boss. Yes. Yeah. Remember, just like in video games, again, even if you didn't grow up playing video games, I did, you will always know about the boss character, right? The final boss. That is a concept in games that carries over, I'm sure that is borrowed from movies itself and from novels, right? Everybody knows about the big villain, the big boss, right? There's actually a Bruce Lee movie called The Big Boss, right? It's a villain, a master villain, and this is pretty much John Rooney. And we'll see some more shots of John Rooney. Again, the rain scene. Remember, I showed you the rain scene from the vantage point of Michael Sullivan. This is the rain scene essentially from the vantage point. Sorry, maybe that I used the wrong term. This is Michael Sullivan's vantage point. I believe he's looking at John Rooney and his henchmen here. But again, you can see that fedora that John Rooney's wearing. This is a man of stature, and now you have a guy holding an umbrella. You have a gentleman in a flat cap. There's several gentlemen in flat caps. There's one gentleman to the left here that's actually wearing another fedora. But for the most part, John Rooney is front and center. He's the most well lit, and he is the guy that's the big boss. Yeah, agree, Ian. It's the boss hat. Everybody kind of like, nobody could deny that, right? The Hamburg has kind of like taken over the top hat as kind of like that hat of nobility, that hat of stature, and the hat of power. It was no accident that Michael Corleone donned that hat. It's a hat that says, take me seriously. Here's another up-close shot of John Rooney's fedora. Again, I believe he has some dents in the front of it. But again, very elegant. This is a very, very well-dressed man, a very powerful man. And again, a very, very greatly lit scene. Again, I'm not even a film, like a filmography buff. I can already tell this movie is like tops. So his myrmidons wear a flat. Okay, I don't even know if I can pronounce that. Myrmidons. I'm gonna say myrmidons. Wear a flat cap. I'm not even familiar with that word, Ian. I'm gonna have to look that up. You are very impressive with your vocabulary. If you knew what myrmidons was before this, bless you. You guys have a much better vocabulary than I do. I would have said goons or henchmen. you know, maybe that's just tells you more about me than does anything. But yes, you know, and again, the strategic use of the fedora, right, and also the color of the fedora is big in this movie, right? It didn't show as well in the shot that I showed, but if you looked at Connor Rooney, his fedora was a little bit lighter colored, right? And I think that was purposeful, right? We know that color played a role in The Godfather, right? With Michael Corleone. With here, I believe color also played a factor. I just didn't have the shot to show you. But Connor Rooney, the son, who nobody takes seriously, he wears a lighter color fedora because he's the director's trying to connote that he's not a guy that says he's not worthy of taking up his father's mantle, right? Kind of like Fredo. Connor Rooney is very much like Fredo Corleone in The Godfather. I think that's actually a really good analogy, except that Connor Rooney is a killer. Fredo never struck me as a killer. Quite the opposite. He was harmless. Here's kind of an up close shot of the brim on John Rooney's fedora. You can see it's a very nice looking felt, and it looks like he's got some brim trim, but it's not an alternate color. It's the same color as the felt. Is that coming across well? I can try to bring that closer if that helps. But you can see the contrast with the blue eyes, right? Paul Newman's blue eyes there, and then that felt. Again, we can kind of say, oh, it's myrmidons. Myrmidons. All right. Thank you for saying that. Posting that phonetically. I need it. Again. I believe this might have been Paul Newman's last film, to be honest, before he passed away. I could be wrong on that, but if it's not his final film, it's one of his final films before he passed away. Great actor. Obviously, just tremendous catalog. So shout out to Paul Newman and rest his soul.
Luke, I'm gonna have to jump off now, but
no problem, my friend.
Show as usual, and we'll catch up very soon. And everybody, have a great weekend, and I look forward to our next chat. I guess it will be Tuesday. Yeah, that
sounds great, my friend. We'll see you. We'll be in touch. All right, bye, Paul.
Thanks, everybody.
Shout out to Paul, man. He is a regular on here. He's a busy man, and he still finds time to come on here because by his own words, he has fun. He has fun just like we all have fun here on this channel. That's what it's all about. It's about having fun. If you're not having fun, you're doing it wrong. Like, this is one of the most fun hobbies I've ever experienced. So if you're not having fun, you're doing it wrong. Let's see. We'll keep going to the slideshow. I got a lot of photos here. Now you can really see the lighting here, and you can see the shot on that fedora, right? And you can see here, right? This right here in the background, you can see out of focus is Michael Sullivan with the Tommy gun. And you can see, oh man, I'm cooked, right? Yeah, he is such a good soul. Yes, he is, Ian. I cannot wait. I cannot wait to hear about you when you guys get together and do the tour of London with the hat shops. That's a lot of fun. I am very jealous, but it couldn't happen to a nicer couple of blokes here. So shout out to Paul. Shout out to Ian. You guys are good people. I'm really happy to have known you guys. And I'm excited at the possibility of all the future interactions I get to have with you guys. So thank you. I appreciate it. But yeah, getting back to the shot, such a cinematic. Again, you could tell they really tried to capture that comic book graphic novel feel here. And you can see here, this is a powerful man, a guy who is. Oh, thank you, Ian. Thank you. Such gentlemen, man. I gotta love it, man. I love it. You guys are folks, are people after my own heart. So I appreciate it. Yeah, what can I say? Again, this is like that scene when the boss knows that he's cooked. Everybody knows that in cinema, right? There's that moment, right? You've seen it in Godfather. You've seen it everywhere. Where that guy goes, he's like, "Yep, I'm done. It's over for me," because he knows, right? Even though he knows that Mike Sullivan is basically like his son, he knows what happened and what led to the scene. It's kind of like John Wick, right? When you watch John Wick, even though that's not necessarily a hat movie, it's a great movie. The original. I'm a big fan of the original John Wick. John Wick, when he goes in that original way, he has the Russian mobster boss guy, right? And he's explaining to him, hey, I'll let you live. Just hand over your son and we're good. And you can see that tension that creates, right, with the character, with that Russian mobster who is a hardened criminal. This is not a guy that you mess with. But also he knows John Wick is not a guy that you mess with, right? So John Wick doesn't need a hat. John Wick has the outfit, right? Kind of like that Blues Brother look without the white shirt. He has an all black tie, black suit, the hair slicked back, and then obviously the firepower. Shout out to John Wick. Shout out to Keanu Reeves. Great movie. Who knows? Maybe I'll cover that anyway. If I run out of hat movies, maybe I'll still do John Wick. Or if you guys find out that there is a hat connection. Actually, the boss in John Wick, the Russian mobster, Vigo, I believe his name is Vigo. Vigo actually wears a stingy brim trilby hat. He just wears it a little sloppy, to be honest. If you watch John Wick and rewatch it, you'll see that Vigo has a trilby on, and you start seeing it towards the middle or later part of the movie. Just looks a little sloppy, but who knows? Maybe there was a good reason for why. But yeah, good movie. Recommended, John Wick. So I'll continue with the slideshow here. Here is actually a behind-the-scenes photo of the director. This is Sam Mendes here having a moment here with Paul Newman. And you can see Paul Newman is all smiles, even though Sam Mendes looks a little bit more serious. They're talking business. But I love that this shot exists. I believe I got this shot from imdb.com. There was just a series of photos here. Then I got a lot of them here for the slideshow. Just a nice little tender moment here. You can see actors once the camera's not rolling. But obviously somebody thought to take this photo. It's actually a really well taken photo, I thought. But yeah, you're just hoping that nobody there snuck on set. When you have a scene like this, sometimes movies will have like little gaps. They'll call them anachronisms, right? Where you're like, obviously this bubble suit and this jeans and this whole outfit that Sam Mendes is wearing is not from 1931. It's very, very much the opposite. Yeah, that hat would suit you, Luke. You know what? Yeah, I agree. I mean, again, I don't have like a kind of a big boss mentality, right? My personality is not very much like that. Although I am a big fan of The Godfather. So I do have that Homburg from Scots of London that Paul is going to send with my two other hats, my two PJ Murphy and Son creations. And it would be kind of my version of the John Rooney, Michael Corleone black big boss hat. And I'm excited to have it. I'm just hoping that the 57, 57 is one of those weird sizes for me, 57 centimeters. Sometimes it can be a little bit tighter. Some 57s fit me maybe a little big or a little, that just show you that the variance in felts from hat to hat. But either way, I don't care. Even if it doesn't fit me perfect, I'm going to probably still try to wear it because it is very much a big boss hat. So thank you, Ian. I appreciate it. And then here you can have these are kind of the silhouettes, more silhouettes from the movie. So I won't go and spend too much time, but this is, again, that infamous rain scene. And you can see what a great eye Sam Mendes has. That's my size too. Hey, Ian. All right. Well, it looks like I got another fellow hat buddy here. I talked about my buddy Jeff, who got me the Akubra. Jeff is also a member of the Fedora Lounge. He's also on Facebook. He sells these. Jeff sells these hat travel boxes on eBay. So if you ever need one of these, definitely give Jeff. I can try to post his information. I just want to ask him to make sure that he's okay with it. I'm sure he would be okay with the eBay information because it would make him a sale. But yeah, if you happen to be a member of the Fedora Lounge, Jeff will give you a $5 discount. If you're a member of the Fedora Lounge, I'm actually that. If you're not a member, then that's a good reason to become a member. If you want to buy one of these from him, these are about maybe like half the price than you would get them from Borsalino or Stetson or whoever else sells these with their brand on it. So just want to plug, wanted to plug that for my buddy Jeff, because he's a great guy. He got me that Akruber for such a great price, and you know, I'm touched that he thought of me. Yeah, Ian says rain is critical to this film. Yeah, if it hasn't been apparent that how like Rain is like a second character in this movie, right? If you rewatch this movie, keep an eye on Rain. It really is kind of another character that appears more than once. Let me just tell you, in this movie, and it's not an accident. You know, this movie's too good for it to have been an accident. And here you go, another silhouette shot, right? This is after Mike Sullivan takes down all the henchmen, all the mermaids of John Rooney. And then John Rooney's there where he doesn't even turn around. He knows that everybody around him is dead, and he's next. Very, very powerful scene. And then I believe this vantage point is from behind, kind of like that same scene, but from behind Tom Hanks, Mike Sullivan's character. And you can see all these goons on the floor, and a very still John Rooney here, knowing that he's next. And then you got that, obviously, that silhouette with the Tommy gun. Very powerful, striking shot. And I believe that's my last rain scene shot. But I wanted to add a couple other things, right? One is this shot, right? I don't know if you guys noticed. Again, you saw O'Neill's, right? I feel like, where was it? Here. You can see O'Neill's, right, in the rain. This is a shot of a daylight shot of O'Neill's. But look at what's not a couple doors down from O'Neill's. This is a hat shop. Let me see if I can zoom in. So it says here, it says hats made to order for ladies and gentlemen in the latest styles. I thought that was pretty neat. This is a Rock Island in the town, and then you have a hat shop here. I thought that was a really nice touch. Again, I don't know how much detail they went into. It feels like they went into a lot of detail to make that shot happen. I don't think that's an accident, to be honest. Even if it was, it's a great one. Great accident. Shout out to Mendez for having these great accidents. And I mentioned before that this movie is about family dynamics, right? Especially father-son dynamics. I want to show a few shots of father-son dynamics here in play, because again, you guys already know how I feel about my dad and our dynamic, right? I adore my dad. Doesn't mean I do everything my dad used to do, right? I feel like my dad raised me a certain way, right? Not to do everything he does or did, but to be better than him. And I try to be, I try to live up to that, right? People will rise to the level of expectations that you set for them. And if you have high expectations for your son or for your daughter or or even for your parents, right? It goes both ways, or your friends, people would generally rise to the level of expectation. If you're a manager out there and you have a direct report that works for you, make sure that you set pretty good expectations for them, because in general, if you hire a good person, they will rise to the level of expectation that you set for them. And if not, then maybe that was a bad hire, and maybe you have to rethink that, right? And if your friends don't do that, maybe you have to rethink what kind of friends you have. Again, not trying to be too preachy, but I'm going dad, as I tend to do. But look at this. Look at this tender moment, that look that Tom Hanks has. He's kind of still stern, but he's kind of like, all right. He's kind of like he's teaching his son to drive, not because his son is of age, but he has to go and get him to be his getaway driver, right? It's a kind of a really, really kind of cool scene. Your dad's example benefits your son. Yes, I agree. That's kind of my dad's legacy, right? And also my granddad's legacy. My dad's legacy is how I have the relationship I have with my son. And again, it doesn't mean that it's perfect. Very few relationships are, right? My son is going through his own life journey, his career journey, his YouTube journey. My son is a YouTuber, very, very actually much more successful. I'm learning, that's how my son has influenced me, right? Besides Kevin Gerber's channel, my son's channel has also influenced this channel. And, and I learned from him, just like he's learned from me. I learned from him. He bought me a beer the last time we went out to the ball game. I'm like, well, how cool is that, right? When you have the roles reversed and your son essentially is taking you out, that's a very beautiful thing. I feel like that's one of the benefits of fatherhood. So shout out to my dads, shout out to my sons. I think we have a lot here. Like chances are you are a son if you are on this channel, or a daughter, right? We got Morgan that's here. If you are, it's hard not to relate to a movie like this, because like if you're lucky enough to have known your dad, or maybe it wasn't your real dad, right? It could have been just a father figure, or it was your granddad, or it was your uncle, right? You kind of see and empathize with what's going on in this film, even though it's pivotal to the film, right? He has to teach his son, not because his son is of age to drive. He's teaching his son because, well, he needs a getaway driver. So Mike Sullivan is a little unorthodox. And you can see here, this shot here, which I thought was really comical, but also really beautiful. You have a dad teaching his son, and his son can barely, like, you can only see his eyes underneath the steering wheel. Beautiful, beautiful, beautiful shot. Like I said, you could make a movie about the making of this movie, to be honest. Like, it could be a how-to on how to make a movie, and I'd watch it, because I think that highly of the way this film is shot and the story. So yeah, just gorgeous storytelling, gorgeous visuals. And look at this scene here. Look at this scene with the fedoras. Like, what kind of hat nerd could resist this scene? I believe this is in Chicago. You've seen the hustle and bustle. Who knows? They might have been on State Street. Shout out to Chicago. Great, beautiful town. It's been a while since I've been there. I think, Ian, you mentioned you had a gig there, I believe. Chicago, great city. Frank Sinatra did the famous song Chicago. Very well worth it, right? He did New York, but he also did Chicago. And I mentioned that before in the previous live stream. There's a reason why Frank Sinatra did Chicago. Frank Sinatra was actually really good friends with a member, or the head of the Chicago outfit, right? So organized crime, right? After Al Capone, you had a gentleman called Sam Momo Giancana. And he was actually, he was talked about in the movie The Irishman. Baron's hats. Interesting. Very interesting. Baron's hats. Huh. Ian, you are a wealth of knowledge, Shout out to Ian for always adding something to this discussion. And you really, again, without even being on camera, you always have the right thing to say. It's a gift, and I'm glad to benefit from it. Yeah, just tremendous, man. This is a photo that I wouldn't mind hanging up in my office, to be honest. Right? There's actually so many scenes, or so many of these photos, that I wouldn't mind hanging up in my office. If you guys already know about my office, I have like 3 photos at the moment. I have to the right, I have the Rat Pack in the famous movie Robin and the Seven Hoods. I got Michael Corleone right in front of me here in his gray Hamburg. I believe it's gray. And he's giving that cold stare that Michael Corleone is known for. And he's right there in front. And to the left, I got a great scene, a great shot of Rocky, right? From Rocky 2, right after he has the fight with Apollo Creed, and he gets a little bit of money, he gets a little bit more styled up, and it's just iconic. And it actually is I mentioned this before, that still photo, the reason why it means so much to me is that this pie, the idea of wearing a chain, something symbolic, around there. Rocky wears a cross. I don't wear a cross. I have a pie symbol, but it's part of my uniform, right? You guys always see it. There's a reason behind it, right? The pi stands for the infinite, at least to me. It's a mathematical term, but just like there's essentially an infinite number of numbers after 3.14, right? You have an infinite number of decimals. That's how I feel our infinite potential is, right? Right? It doesn't mean that we could do every single thing we want to do, right? Luke is probably not going to go and play for the New York Mets. Luke is probably not going to dunk a basketball for the New York Knicks. But there's a lot of other things that Luke can do to leave his mark on this world. In which case, within my circle of competence, my potential is unlimited, and so is yours. Don't let anybody tell you different. If somebody does tell you different, then well, get new people around you. Yeah, in Chicago, Barron's hats in Chicago. Yeah, yeah. And we talked about Optimo. Optimo is another great hat shop and hat brand. Happens to be really pricey. So if you own an Optimo, I am jealous, and God bless for having the ability to buy yourself an Optimo. Like I said, if you have the money, you should always surround yourself with the things that around you, right? It becomes, like Paul says, a milestone purchase, right? It's not something that people tend to buy just willy-nilly. Oh, I got like a 40 Optimos, right? People tend to have maybe one or maybe two Optimos because they are commemorating a certain milestone. Maybe they got married, maybe they made partner at their firm, they got the promotion, or whatever you would think. They got engaged. Whatever that milestone is, and they're commemorating with a fine hat. And you could do that with a Huffbud, you could do that with a Hornscarf, you could do that with an Optimo, you can do that with a PJ Murphy and Son hat, because they're great hats. I don't have one yet, but I've already seen what Paul's done, and I think that's a great way to get yourself a quality fine hat. So support Paul if you can, right? If it doesn't mean anything, Ian's already done it. I'm in the process of doing that. I'm actually Paul and I are working out the shipping and the payment, and then we're gonna have to start the process of getting the hats over here. So of course, I'm gonna show them here on the channel. I'm not gonna withhold from you, even though you've already seen some of it on Paul's side. You'll see them on my head. So look out for that. Again, another interesting father-son scene here. This is again part of that 6 weeks that Michael, in the very first scene, he says, I knew the man differently. I spent 6 weeks on a road with him. So you can see that this father-son dynamic, and again, it's on the heels of tragedy, right? This is one thing I didn't mention, but this is not the entire family. Michael has a younger brother named Peter. Michael Jr. does. And there's a wife, and they are murdered by Connor Rooney. So that starts off, again, we had the initial murder that we talked about. Then there was a follow-up murder by Connor Rooney. So he murdered not just that gentleman in that scene that we showed. He murdered Michael Sullivan's wife and his youngest son, Peter. So this is a dad that's kind of has his life shattered, but at the same time, he's trying to hold on to what he has left with his oldest son, who's a little bit of a troublemaker, right? He's a little mischievous. Peter was the studious one. He was the kid that he had no problem with. He was very respectful. Michael Jr. here is the one that would you've seen him stealing something from a local shop early in the scene. So he's got a little bit of an edge, a little bit of mischief, but it becomes very believable that he can help his dad out because that he's wily, he's scrappy. So yeah, just another scene. Now, contrast this with the shot of John Rooney with Connor Rooney, and you'll see a very different dynamic. Here you go. This is one scene. Now, is this not the perfect contrast for the father-son relationship that you see between Michael Sullivan, or Mike Sullivan Sr., and Michael Jr.? Compare that, what we all saw, compared to this scene here. This is a dad that's very disappointed in his blood child, and this is a son that's scared of his dad, right? He's scared of his dad, and he probably knows that he will never, ever be what his dad would want him to be, or at least in his mind, right? In his mind, he doesn't live up to his dad, and he wants to rebel. He's trying to go and surpass his dad and take his dad out, is what he's trying to do. So you got that place, kind of like that whole kind of, and maybe in many ways, an Oedipal, right? We know about Oedipus Rex, who murdered his father and married his mom. Now he doesn't go that far with the character here. Doesn't end up marrying his mom, but he he's double crossing his dad. That's why the chain of events falls out the way it does, because he ended up cooking the books. Anyway, I won't get too much more into that, but you guys already know that there's a character in here that I have not even discussed if you watch this movie, and there's a good reason. This guy is a badass. sorry for being a little crass. That's this gentleman right here. This gentleman is Harlan Maguire, and he's played by Jude Law. And this guy is sinister. He is a character. This guy could be, right? You know that he is a villain character right out of a comic book when you see him, and you see him in this movie, because his whole look, his whole backstory is tremendous. This is a guy that fancies himself a photographer, but he's a photographer that kills. He's a hitman for hire. And he has this photography studio to kind of get in on crime scenes. And a lot of times he'll leave his mark on the crime scene. What a character. Man, you can't make up this kind of stuff. I mean, obviously it is made up, but, it feels like with this movie, you never know whether these were like, right? We know that John Rooney was based on a character named Looney. That's Ian shared that with us. But this guy, there's so much layers and complexity to this villain that I don't know. You could even do a whole show on this guy alone. That's how complex he is, and that's how an impression and like how scary this guy is and comes across. And of course, he wears a hat. Now, again, here's the thing. This kind of seems like it's a bowler hat, but I'm gonna say that this could be a Hamburg, right? This could be a Hamburg. An open crown Hamburg. Either way, it's an open crown hat. Regardless of whether you think it's a bowler hat or a Hamburg, it's definitely open crown. I'm just going to leave it at that. I'll show you this shot here. He's got, obviously, you can see he's walking in the middle of daylight in Chicago, I believe this is, and he's carrying a shotgun or a rifle of some sort, a long gun. Again, pretty badass. This is not a guy. This is kind of like a Terminator type scene, where you got the bad guy chasing down his prey, and he means business, right? From this angle, it kind of does look like a bowler. I don't know. I don't know the answer to that. I'm speculating. Either way, it's an open crown hat, whether you think it's a Hamburg or a bowler. And you can see here with his camera equipment, again, really blending in with his environment, right? You know that the press this is like an iconic photo, but you can look, he's a very squirrely guy, right? Look at those eyes. Look at that menace in his eyes of Harlan Maguire. It is iconic, right? Iconic. Like, this is just a movie of iconic scenes. And this character he kind of steals the show, to be honest. For me, Harlan Maguire, the character played by Jude Law, steals this movie. Like, he is the guy, right? He's like Darth Vader. And look at this. Look at that. Look at that. Look, he's looking at in this scene, he's looking up at the waitress who's serving him. And right across from him, a couple booths down, is Mike Sullivan. So this is a scene where if you see this in the movie, you'll know that he has already realized that there are cops in this diner. But he's so focused on getting his man, right? He's there to kill Mike Sullivan. That's his contract. That's why he's there. And you can see that look. He has that look. He has a watch, right? As a watch guy, you guys know I'm a watch guy. He has a very, very, elegant looking watch. He has that kind of like that tweed. I don't know if it's tweed or wool. It's probably wool, a wool jacket. Very, very beautiful attire and very period appropriate. But you can see this is not a guy you mess with. And the nice thing is, right, I'll show you the scene right across. I mentioned it before. I'll see if I can find it real quick. When Michael Sullivan sees him and sees this gentleman across from him, this is Michael looking at him in that diner, right? I just showed you two scenes. This is the two vantage points in that diner. This is Mike Sullivan seeing a guy across him that is also pretty badass, right? This is very much like when Pacino met De Niro in Heat. They had that sit down where they had that infamous exchange in Heat, where he's like, yeah, well, if you see me around the corner, you better look, you better not think twice and better not hesitate, because I will not hesitate, my friend. It's a really iconic exchange. And, I think De Niro kind of stole that show, but Pacino was pretty good too. Pacino was like, you, sir, are a bad guy, and I'm there to take you out. Man, I can't wait to, maybe one day we'll cover Heat. What a great movie. I don't think it's a hat movie, but again, if I can make that twist, I'll do it. Because it's a great movie, I think. For me, it was. You might think differently. I know I knew some people that don't think it's a great movie. But yeah, that's all I had in terms of the photos for this movie. Yeah, what a powerful movie. Road to Perdition. Man, you saw that there was no way I was going to be able to pull off this show without showing you a bunch of photos. It's just, again, if you haven't seen the movie, definitely see it, right? If you're a hat nerd and you haven't seen this movie, watch this movie. If you have seen it and haven't seen it lately, rewatch it. Rewatch it maybe after you've seen this stream, or maybe before, right? If you've never watched it, obviously watch it first, then watch my stream. I don't want to be somebody that spoils it unnecessarily, but wow, what a tremendous hat movie. It's just a tremendous movie altogether, right? This is it's not one of those movies that people think of when they think of Tom Hanks, although I do. Thank you, Ian. The photos made all the difference. I appreciate it. For me, I happen to think that it makes a difference, but it's nice to know that my audience also appreciates that. Yeah, I appreciate it. Yeah, man, what a wild ride. It's already been a little bit under 2 hours. I'm approaching the 2-hour mark. I'm going to just close out a couple of business points. One, obviously, we have the hat giveaway, right? I kept talking about it. I'll mention this again. This hat, I will give this away at the 100 subscriber mark, right? So, now you already have, a motivation. If you didn't have one before, you now have a motivation to like and subscribe to the Good Luke's YouTube channel, because once I hit 100 subscribers, I will post a video on this hat. It's kind of an alpine looking with moth bites, but it doesn't have any new moth bites. If you go and you compare this to the photos that I shown in last week, you shouldn't see any new moth bites. If you do, let me know. I'll make a correction. But it's a Knox custom. It's 7 1/4, so roughly 58 centimeters. And I'm gonna give that hat away. I may ask you to cover shipping. But what's going to happen is once I hit the 100 subscriber mark, I'll do a video. Maybe I'll wear it. Maybe I'll just do the video and I'll wear a different hat. But I will probably ask you to comment on that video, and I'll make a reasonable cutoff as to when the comment needs to be made. And I'm going to just either randomly select, or I don't know, whatever the way is the most fair after I confer with my board of directors. And I'm going to give away that hat. And I'm not going to exclude my insiders, unless they decide that they want to be excluded. It's just going to be a nice little way. Yeah, Ian is actually right. I don't know because I've never done it, but Ian says sandpaper might well deal with those bites. Yeah, again, maybe this is going to be a hat that you can start your restoration project on, right? So if you're somebody that it wants to do what the same process that Paul does, did still does, as well as Josh, then maybe this is going to be a hat that you go and you restore, and maybe you can show us videos, right? You can maybe get on here, and if you win this hat, get on video, or maybe just send photos and I'll share it with the audience. Either way, I just want to make sure that you guys, I keep you guys with something in it, the what's in it for me. If you don't like this content as much as I hope you do, then maybe you just watch for this hat. I don't know. I just want to try to pull as many levers as I can to get you guys to support the channel and like the videos, because really it's my motivation, right? I don't know how long I'll be able to keep these videos coming. I'm going to try to do this for as long as I can. But maybe one day I'll wake up and I'm like, you know what? I'm not doing this anymore. And, I hope that never happens. Right now, I don't feel like it's going to happen. But if it does, I know that liking and subscribing to this channel is going to give me a little bit more oomph, a little bit more firepower, besides my walking and my fasting. It'll give me a little bit more extra motivation to go out there and keep these videos going for you guys, because I really do enjoy it. And I want to keep going forever and ever and ever and ever and ever. So definitely hit that like and subscribe button. Another thing I want to mention is, and I want to remind you guys, if you didn't tune in to the last Hat Tuesday, that Wednesday edition that I did just on Wednesday, I mentioned that the upcoming Fedora Friday number 4, will be hosted, kind of a co-hosted at least by myself, and I'll have a special guest on, Steve Heck, who's on from the Fedora Lounge, and he is an expert on all things Austrian and German hats. He's going to join us unless something changes between now and then. He's going to join us at 11 a.m. Eastern Standard Time on Tuesday for Hat Tuesday number 4. I'm looking forward to it. Maybe Paul will be on video with us as well. And obviously my whole inner circle is always invited to join on video. I have the ability to do up to 6 participants. Again, I've never done it. I don't know if that would just be chaos, but I'm happy to try. But I want to make this really interactive because I feel like it's going to be much better that way. And Steve already told me he prefers an interactive show where he says stuff. And if you guys have comments, I will be in charge of posting your comments. So actually it will be good. In addition to participating and interacting with Steve, I will be in charge of the comments. Each ouch. Yeah. What does that mean, Ian? I don't have time to look it up while here on the stream. I'll look it up later if you don't want to share and you want me to have it as be a surprise. But I'd like to know the translation of that. I'm pretty sure it's German. At least it sounds German. Yeah, me too. Yeah, exactly, man. I do this for, besides doing it because I love it, I do it for you guys, my fellow hat nerds. I don't care how if we're not many. Even if I never grow beyond 45 subscribers, I will probably still try to keep doing the show because I really think it means that much to me to try to deliver this content to you. And hopefully you guys appreciate it and have a lot of fun here because, right, if you're not having fun, you're doing it wrong. If you're not having fun in life, you're doing life wrong. Like, life should be fun. Surround yourself around fun things, fun people, fun ideas, right? Positivity. Not to be too preachy, but again, life's too short to be a curmudgeon, right? If you find yourself that you're more of like an ogre and a curmudgeon, like the Man Named Otto, right? If you watch that Tom Hanks movie, A Man Called Otto, A Man Named Otto, I believe it's the name of the movie. Great modern, little bit more recent Tom Hanks film, and it's got a life lesson for you. And another good one is Gran Torino, right? Gran Torino, you had Clint Eastwood playing that curmudgeon, that get off my lawn kind of guy, and he was a racist, but he had this relationship with this father-son like relationship with an Asian boy next door, happened to be part of the Hmong culture, right? Shout out to the Hmong people, a very, very beautiful culture that was displayed in that movie. And they soften him up, right? They have this interaction. They have this racist, this blatant racist who calls them racist names. And by the end of the movie, he's defending and gives his life for them. What a great, powerful movie. Sorry if I spoiled that for you. But again, I already mentioned, you don't come here not expecting spoilers. Great movie, Gran Torino, A Man Named Otto, A Man Called Otto, Tom Hanks and Clint Eastwood, some of the great actors and directors of our time. And we're here to celebrate them all, right? So that's going to be it for Fedora Friday number 3, where we profiled Road to Perdition. This has been your host, Luke. We were just joined by Paul. We have Ian and my man Josh. All of us, from me to you, I say thank you for joining us. And like I said, keep supporting us. I said like and subscribe. And if you want to, that's great. If you don't, I'm fine. But I need you to do me one favor. Make sure you respect the bowler, respect the derby, right? And do me what? What are we going to do? Stay hatting, my friend. Thank you. Have a great day. Ciao.